Welcome. Jesus.
Oh,
We have not mastered the lead-in very well, Kevin.
God
Dang it. It's Family Matters. But anyway, we're kind of like a crashing car that just, hits a brick wall, and there we are. So anyway.
Let's do it, baby.
The production value is way down. We just go straight to the value. Kevin Petersen, how are you doing?
I'm good. We're content people, Jay. We're not creative people.
Well, I think we're in between dysfunction and education. I think was the best. Someone told me we're somewhat comedic and somewhat educational, and I took that as a compliment. So
I think that's the goal, right?
Yeah, I guess, but they said comedic first, so I just jumped on that. But anyway, well, let's get right into it. And so I'm not going to, because there's this question that I'll be honest with you. We haven't done the show for a couple of weeks, and I think this got in my inbox for a couple of weeks back. And so I've had to sit on it, and I go back and forth with it. So I'm not even going to put my 2 cents into it, and then I'm going to zap you with it. And so there was I think it's a mom. Anyway, so she wants to basically get our 2 cents with is when it comes to change, is addiction, do you want to see more change internal or more change external? Do you want to see, do you want to get more active? She's saying, do you like get outside? You got, her son's more isolative, kind of stays in her room. She struggles to stay sober. She went on and on. So she wants to say is that, she watches the show. She went on and on about talking about how we change our thoughts, change our habits, internal. But she really wants to say, her son doesn't really get out much, doesn't really connect with others. And so she curious to see where's the change. Is it external or is it internal, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, I get it. But she's not going to like my answer.
I don't think anyone that likes her answers, Kevin.
She has to change. She's so wrapped up in how her son is behaving and what he is or isn't doing. That's a big piece of what needs to change. Is she needs to disengage from his recovery and allow him to do his own thing. Now, she can have boundaries with him and just communicate the boundaries. But it sounds to me like she's trying to monitor his recovery and judge whether or not it's working. That's not her job. And that's honestly the answer. For me, the individual, it's when I first showed up, I think a lot of it was, when I first started getting sober and all that stuff, I'd go do what I needed to do, go to the meetings, hang out with everybody. I may not have liked it. And I wasn't like, this is the best day of my life. But I was like, well, this is what I got to do. And then eventually it seeped in. But again, I really caution mom to stay out of son's business and really engage in her own course of change. And I'm sure if she's here, like, well, yeah, I know, but, and it's like, no, I know buts. This is your job is to take care of you. The most significant thing you can do as the family member is to get into your own recovery and change your behavior, not continue with the old behavior of trying to monitor his situation. That's the answer.
Well, I'm funny you say that because they can call us comedy. They can call us whatever they want. I'm just going to call this a segue because we have another question that goes right into this. So we got another completely different person. I don't think these people even know each other. And she wants to know, I'm assuming it's a mom again. I think we're really good. I think we're really big with the moms. I don't think the dads are really, but she wants to know, how do you know, we're always talking about the client and the the loved one, the addict, that's what it looks like for them being in recovery. She's curious to see she wants to, like she asked about me particularly. I think she loves me. I mean, who doesn't like me? But she asked, like, what does it look like for a family to be in recovery? Because you always talk about the family doing their own work. What does it look like when the family's actually in recovery?
Oh, well, that's a great question.
See the segues? That's a connection right there.
And people say we're just doing this off the cuff, So the answer is the way when the family's in recovery is their behavior changes, and collectively and individually. So again, if there's mom, dad, and another sibling or something, everyone has to be addressing their issues. Everyone needs to be going to therapy. Some people may need a 12-step recovery group, depending on what's going on. That's what has to happen in the family system. And that's how we measure whether or not the family system is recovering, is by the amount of change that occurs in their behavior. Very much like the addict or the alcoholic. We see change in their behavior. That's how we know things are happening. Same thing with the family. I mean, simple answer,
And it's ongoing too. I see a lot of people that they get through the early stages of recovery, and then it seems like the family just forgets everything that they did, and then it kind of goes back to normal. So yeah, I think it's important to remind people. It's like you don't necessarily have to double down, but I mean, this is stay within the recovery. I mean, the therapy, like everything seems to be working. Don't drop everything that seems to be working. So. Right. I mean, it's like, thankfully, my parents are still holding to the same beliefs. And I mean, I can't say that my mom is going to as many Al-Anons or my family or whatever it may be, but they do know that once they get up in their heads, they now do tap into the Al-Anon, or they call it, some Al-Anon connections that they learned early in my recovery. And so they use those resources that they learned early in recovery as they found that as a solution. So keep it going. I mean, I'm still in recovery. The family needs to remember it doesn't just automatically go away. So it's always a good reminder.
Absolutely. Everybody has to stay engaged in their recovery, not just the addict or the alcoholic.
So you talk about recovery communities. Do you want to just kind of go over some of the recovery communities that you kind of have used or recommend?
Sure. For the family.
Yeah.
I think it's really critical that they're engaged in their own individual therapy. And that therapy surrounding what it's like to be part of this family system that we have that has some addiction, some mental health issues, and how that's affected you individually and what you're going to do about it. That's the first thing that has to happen for everybody. And then, I think there's some great 12-step groups. There's Al-Anon, there's Codependence Anonymous, there's Families Anonymous. I mean, if you're into church, Celebrate Recovery does a pretty effective job, I think, as well. I'm a huge fan of Adult Children of Alcoholics. All those 12-step groups are great. But I think the 12-step group is awesome. I think individual therapy for the family members is generally where I see people start, and they tend to have a lot of success there because they get a chance to sort of vent out what's going on. This is what's happening. This is how I feel. This is what's upsetting me. And it gets them a place where they're not venting that out on the other family members, and then they can sort of step through that and be like, okay, so I need a solution. And sometimes there are, local groups that do stuff. Sometimes the treatment centers have ongoing alumni family meetings. Those are all great. But here's the thing. Just like your addict or alcoholic has to continue in, there's two requirements, right? Abstinence from your behavior of drugs and alcohol. And then you got to change the way you behave, change the way you act. Same thing with the families. You can't just go to a meeting. You got to have a sponsor. You got to work the steps. And that tends to be a big wall. And I get it. It's intimidating. But the thing is, that's what we're talking about. You want your loved one who's struggling with drugs and alcohol to change their behavior and become, abstinent from those things. Well, then you have to do the same thing. You have to show the same steps of, oh my gosh, I realized that I have some behavior traits that I lean back into or fall back on. I need help on correcting those. And you're setting the example. So
yeah,
that's my thought.
I was just talking last night, and I mean, addiction, I think, strengthens with silence and, kind of isolation. I mean, I think it still goes with these families, just their reluctance to even talk about, addiction within their families, as they still want to keep it as such a secret, and they think that they're unique and that there's no one else is going through it, and they don't want, other people to find out that their son is struggling, even though, like, we're to a point right now that everyone knows someone that's going through it. But, I was talking to the person, like, you can talk about someone dealing with weight, for their whole life. They've never worried about talking about someone's dealing with weight. They'll share it with anyone. But when it comes to addiction, it's like a steel trap. I mean,
oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
I think that's the biggest issue there too. I think families just don't want, heaven forbid it gets out to the country club folk, So
yeah, there's so much shame, and then the kind of the irony or the funny part is, I mean, everyone everyone on your block is dealing with it too. I mean, it's just it's like and the funny part from the families that I work with is when they finally come forward and say something to one of their friends or neighbors. They're like, oh, blah, 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 blah. My dad, my brother, my sister, my mom, you're like, oh, really? Shit. No kidding. Huh?
Yeah.
So
it's amazing. It's amazing. And they realize, like, all of a sudden they have things to talk about. So, alrighty. Probably deal with this one a lot, but, so we got another situation. So, I got to do a better job of paraphrasing. So we have a situation, I think 19, 18, 20, somewhere in that area.
Okay.
An adult son tells uncle everything, but mom and dad are wanting to get your advice as to their basic question is, I think I like their question was, where on the scale should we be between being cool and WTF? I mean, so they don't want their son that obviously is not showing really signs, but is getting drunk every so often. They don't want to overblow the situation and blow their top, but they also want to make a statement saying we don't like this, but they seem to think that their son can't come to them. They're going to their uncle. So they seem to a disconnect, and they're wondering if it's something they're doing or something like that.
Oh yeah, it's totally their fault. I'm sure I'm just kidding. What I would say is, sit down with your son and just say, hey, we noticed you talked to your uncle about everything. Is there a reason why you don't feel comfortable talking to us? And then listen to what he says, because there may be a reason. He may feel judged. He may feel shamed. He may feel intimidated. He may feel like when he tries to talk to you, you talk over him and then try to fix him and correct him, which are really typical, very normal family dynamics of parents. So, sometimes talking to somebody that's in the circle, but not in the inner circle is easier because that person doesn't have as much vested into the situation and they don't feel like they have to come up with a solution or make it all better. I totally get what's going on. And I totally get where the parents are coming from. Like, hey, we want to be part of this too. And so this is a great opportunity to just sit down and just say, hey, we're not mad. We're just wondering why you're comfortable talking to Uncle the Funkle, as your shirt says, but not.
I mean, it's amazing how this thing happens. I mean, I didn't even plan on this.
I know, it's incredible, but I get it. I mean, I totally get it. I mean, it makes sense. It totally makes sense. We And it's so, but this is just a great opportunity to practice some healthy family dynamics and just sit down and just say, hey, we're just wondering what's going on and why, and not judge or not get angry or not accuse, Yeah.
And maybe there's not one particular answer, but I'm interested in just, so you deal with hundreds of families or something, but kind of a baseline, I'm curious, as when you have that high school 18-year-old that's kind of trying out probably once or twice, come home drunk or something. What are you kind of, if the family was working with you, what is your kind of baseline? Obviously you have a sit down, but is there a punishment that comes? Is it just a communication? Is there a punishment? What's kind of a baseline would you suggest for a parent?
Sure. I would make it really clear. If they're living in your house on your dime, it's your rules. And you have the right to say, hey, we have a curfew. It's not okay if you're drinking. You have the right to say all those things. And if you think your kid is just kind of like, out there just trying to sort through it and figure it out, or they show up one time a little tipsy, there's nothing wrong with sitting them down. By the way, never talk to them when they're drunk.
Yeah. Amen.
Never. Just don't bother. You always want to wake them up at about 7 a.m. the next day, Just that's what my dad did. He's just like, get up.
I think that's what every parent did. I think every parent did that.
Yeah. And, we're going to do some gardening, at, with 100-degree temperature, and you're going to throw up all over the place. And so how'd that work out for you? You're like, not well. But just have that conversation. This is, again, another opportunity to have a great, healthy family dynamics conversation. Hey, noticed you came home a little fucked up last night, and we just want to let you know, A, you'll never drive one of our cars again. That's just not going to happen. And B, we want to talk about that because we're concerned about that. And that's just good parenting,
Yeah.
And if it's happening on a regular basis, well, then you need to take some steps, but look for the signs, right? It's not just, don't wait for them to start showing up wasted at night. Are they struggling at school? Are they struggling at work? Are they brushing up against the law? Are they struggling with their friend group? Is there a lot of changes? Did they used to be super athletic and now they rejected everything? Look for the clues. And the thing is, people like us, like you and I, we don't leave breadcrumbs. We leave loaves. And when you look back on it, you're like, oh, yeah, okay. And then hold them accountable. If they're in school, just say, hey, we need to see your grades on a regular basis. And I don't mean every semester. I mean, every couple of weeks. I want to see. Let's check in, see what's going on. But then offer them help. Don't just come at them with a big stick. Hey, you feel like you're drinking and doing too many drugs? Great, let's get you some help. Let's figure that out. Feel like you're struggling at school? Great, let's get you some help. Feel like you're having some overall struggles? Great, let's get you some help. My job as your parent and your family member is to offer you help and love you, not to punish you. And now, if they don't receive the help, then we go to plan B, and that's when they call you and they get a free trip to the spa, or not free, but a trip to the spa.
Well, some don't think it's free, but yeah, it's it's never a surprise. Like anyone that you talk to any family and they say like, yeah, he found out he's doing drugs, and then it's like, oh yeah, then they list this for the past 6 months he's been pushing away, but and it's like, do you ever think about those are the signs that he was leading to this? Oh yeah, well we just thought that was him part of growing up and stuff. There's always signs. I love how you say that. It's never just like boom, it just happens one Friday night that they decide to throw away their lives. So there's always signs. So
yeah, you got to read the tea leaves, and see what's going on. So
all righty, sir, you're dismissed. Another Family Matters in the books.
Are we? Hey, so next week's July 4th. Are we going to skip next week?
We probably should.
I mean, we could do it on July 4th edition. I mean, I don't know. Or maybe another day earlier or later, but just throwing that out there for our.
Yeah, I think we'll see. Maybe we'll put up a Family Matters July 4th week edition. You never know.
All
if
right.
we can get some questions, if the questions come, we'll put it on the viewers. If the questions come in, we'll do an episode.
I'm in. Sounds great.
All right. See ya.
All right, pal.